All right, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, my name is Oxtane, and today I'm going to take a look at the fourth wing of Naxxramas for Resto Shaman healing. And today is the Plague Quarter. Now, this is such a fun wing, just so many cool, unique fights here. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it, especially the last one of the Plague Wing, which we'll get into, which is Lotheb. These fights are super fun, super interesting, and not to waste your guys' time, let's just go ahead and get right into it. Alrighty guys, starting off the Plague Wing here, we have the first boss, which is Noth the Plaguebringer. Now, this boss is pretty simple, definitely one of the easier fights in the entire instance. It can pretty much just be zugged down before really many mechanics go out. The most mechanically heavy thing is down to the mages in this fight. So for us, as shaman healers or just healers in general, not a lot going on. Basically, you go in, the tank's going to tank them right around here in the corner-ish, just anywhere really, just along this area right here. Everyone's going to stack on behind the boss, and so just like the big spider, basically everyone's just going to stack on the rear of the boss. Most of your healing is going to be healing the tank, but there will be periodic damage going out to the raid from ads or whatever. So chain heal's prime here. When everyone's grouped up, chain heal is your best friend. You probably already know that, so pretty self-explanatory there. Like I said, the main mechanic is Curse of the Plaguebringer, which mages have to decurse. It goes out on everybody in the raid, and if they don't decurse, I think like you can only have like 2 or 3 people in the entire raid that have it by the time it ticks, or it's just a wipe. It just does massive AoE shadow damage to the entire raid, and it'll just be a wipe. So in case you live through that, it's a ton of damage. So that's something to be wary of if you do get a couple people that are left with it. You probably will wipe, but if you don't, just be prepared to like NS max rank chain heal. Just go full zug on the chain heals if that mechanic does indeed go out. A cripple goes out, but again, they decurse that, so we don't really have to worry about that. All the major mechanics are decursable, things like that. So again, it pretty much just falls on the mages from our perspective. Just keep the tank alive, heal any cleave damage that goes out on the raid. 90 seconds in, the boss does a teleport up to the ledge. So he'll just teleport up to the ledge here, and a bunch of ads will spawn. You kill him, he comes back down. Rinse, repeat. So pretty simple. He's up there for a minute, or I think you can kill the ads and he comes down right away again. I'm not exactly sure. So yeah, and then if you're a pug or you know, a slow raid, you might get a second one, but honestly, it doesn't really have that much HP, so I doubt it. I mean, again, on our PTR with like a pug group, we were able to one phase it. They didn't on purpose just so they could see the mechanic, but yeah, I mean, you just one phase it with a pug with no world buffs on the PTR. Like, it's gonna be really easy come the live version for sure. The other thing is just a threat wipe every like 25 to 30 seconds. He'll do a blink, and then he'll also do the cripple at the same time. Just make sure you're not healing when that goes out, because you'll probably be the first person he targets, and everyone's kind of grouped up, so you might get clapped. So just be wary of that. DBM, everything will have accurate timers once this actually launches, so shouldn't be too much of an issue there. And then we'll go ahead and do the same thing as last time. We'll go ahead and look at Ztox's VOD, our main tank for my raid. He tested this on the official PTR. So we'll go ahead and take a look at his VOD right here. And so just so you guys have some visuals to go along with this, I figured I'd include this. And again, I believe they just one-shot it, but they don't actually one-shot it just so they can learn some of the mechanics. But it's a very straightforward, simple fight. Not a lot going on here. So we see Ztox just rushing in there towards Noth, and you're going to see the positioning in person where everyone is. But yeah, more or less, pretty much just everyone's stacked. It doesn't have to be like a super tight stack, but yeah, you just more or less everyone's just in the same area. So yeah, you can see like the totem placements, everything like that. You can spread out as much or as little as you want. It's not too big of a deal. You don't need to stack, but it's just gonna be easier in the end overall if you do that. And you can just see how fast he's melting. You can see a mage doing like 3k DPS. So, you know, threat's gonna be the only thing on this fight that like makes it kind of manka for a healer. Just in case it jumps to a DPS or something, you just want to be ready. But I mean, for the most part, like this is a very, very easy fight. Not difficult at all. So yeah, pretty simple. And then obviously he'll do the teleport. He goes up on the platform, adds, go out, everything like that. Pretty easy overall. Alrighty, guys. So Heigan the Unclean is the second boss, also known as the Safety Dance boss, famously in both Wrath of the King and obviously classic WoW. This is a boss that also gets talked about a lot in Nax. Like, definitely one of the most memorable fights and definitely one of the more interesting, I'd say. It's not particularly difficult, though, I wouldn't say. It gets like a lot of like kind of talk about it, you know, and everything, just because of the safety dance mechanic and things like that. But it, you know, when you're raiding in 2006 at like 5 FPS, you know, moving across a room is kind of a hard mechanic. But nowadays, not so much, right? And it's a set pattern. It's not a random thing, right? So it's a pretty easy fight for a well-coordinated raid. It's not that intimidating, but there are some key important things to note that can cause you to wipe if you mess them up. So from a healer perspective, I mean, there's two phases essentially, but then the other one is just a random teleport. So just an overview of the fight. Starting out, you're gonna run into the room from the gauntlet. You're going to come in this way. The boss is initially going to be on this platform. The tank's going to tank him down in this corner right here to start. All the ranged, so us as healers, it's just everybody as ranged that has mana, etc., is going to be up on this platform where the boss starts out before you pull him. Because you want to keep range of the boss, because the boss basically does, it looks like an arcane explosion, basically. And what it does is it drains mana if you're in range of it, and it drains a lot of mana. So you don't want to be in range of that, but the melee are going to get a disease on them. So us as Shaman want disease cleansing totems down. The tricky thing here is finding a balance between where your totems reach of the 30 yards versus not getting hit with the blast, right? So finding that range is kind of the thing. So right when the boss starts, you want to probably place your totems, you know, pretty much just around the place that you are, just a little bit off the platform, maybe like right down in this area. That way, no matter where they move in the first phase across the entire room, Wind Fury or whatever you need to drop for your group is going to reach, because dispelling here and curing the disease is important, because it literally reduces their health by half and deals damage. It's a big buff, so, or debuff. So that's the most important thing for us as shamans on this fight, is getting rid of the disease. It's very, very important. Reduces their max health by half and inflicts 500 nature damage every 3 seconds. So that's the thing you want to remember. Other than that, the main mechanic obviously is the safety dance. Now, there's like kind of two different versions. One of them we don't need to worry about as shaman healers, because for the entire first phase, which is the first 90 seconds, so depending on your raid composition, how, you know, if you still have world buffs, things like that, I mean, you may not even see the safety dance in its actual form as a mechanic, because if you kill him before 90 seconds, you're not going to see it. So that's the thing. So for the melee, they need to worry about moving him. So they're going to reposition him every, I believe it's every like 15 seconds or so, or around 10 to 15 seconds, they're going to move him. So then after that, they're going to move him over here because then the blast is going to hit this area of the room. And then they're going to, you know, go over here. And then it's going to hit that 15 seconds later. So you're just, you know, that's why you want to place your totems right here, because they're just going to be moving all the way around the room. So the way that it can reach them most easily at the 30-yard range, it's going to be the most easy for you. So again, just staying out of range of the mana burn, but also being able to dispel the disease is kind of the main thing here. Obviously, the actual safety dance will happen 90 seconds into the fight. So if your raid happens to have this happen, the boss is going to teleport back onto the platform that he started, and everybody in the raid is going to go where the boss started on the pool, in this initial corner right here. So everybody's going to stay right here. And then, you know, the explosion's going to go out. Right, so you're gonna have to move to the other side, and you're just gonna do the same thing that the melee did in phase 1. You're just gonna, boom, it explodes. Okay, go over to this side. And this happens way more frequently, because in the first phase, it was about 15 seconds it goes out or so, every 10 to 15 seconds. In the safety dance one, it happens like literally like every 2 or 3 seconds. So it happens pretty quickly, and it's a decent hitbox. Like, you can be like, look like you're not touching the poison that comes up from the ground, but you still die to it. So that's the important thing to remember here, is just moving in sync. Right, as a unit, you all move together when the next one blows up, and I'll have a little diagram here that I'll show on the screen that kind of shows the order, right? So then, you know, it's 4 different zones, then you go all the way over here, and then when this part that you were just standing at blows up, then you go back over immediately, and you just go back to the start, right? And you just do that in an order, right? And then you all end up back where you started. And then it'll be a repeat of the other phase where the tank just tanks them here. Every ranged goes back up here. Boss comes back down. Ranged go back up. And just rinse and repeat until he's dead. Now, there is one other mechanic to keep in mind, which is the teleport. So he'll teleport some random players into this little ad room here. So into this little hallway, and ignore the markers because, you know, I'm not rid of them or whatever. I can clear them real quick. Basically, there's going to be a bunch of eye stalks and little maggots and stuff like scattered across the room. You just need to get to the end of the room. You just need to get to the other end, back to the boss room. It's pretty simple. I mean, the ads have like no HP, so even if it's like all healers or something, you know, you can just kill them very, very easily. I mean, I don't even think they have like 1,000 HP. Like, it's very easy to kill them. You just go to the end of the room. And honestly, you don't really even need to kill them necessarily, as much as you just need to get to the other side, right, to get out. So that's the thing you want to remember. Other than that, again, like, not a super complicated fight. It's a little intimidating on the surface, but the safety dance mechanic is very simple. It's not overly complicated, and again, it's the same thing every time, and it's the same timing every time. So even if your raid struggles at first, it's going to get easier. And honestly, the hardest part for us as shaman healers on this fight is just worrying about cleansing the disease, as well as just staying out of range of the arcane explosion that does the mana burn, because that's really the main balance for us. If you need to kind of duck and weave depending on how far back your tank is pulling the boss, then, you know, and that's another thing entirely. But in general, it's not too bad to manage them, especially if you keep disease cleansing down on this fight. It does half the work for you. But if you can still have like something like decursive and you just do it instantly on top of the totem, or just replace the totem depending on the position, if it doesn't let you be in range of the mana burn, then, you know. So those are the basic mechanics, and we'll go ahead and we'll look at the VOD here from Mr. Z-Talks. Now, we can go ahead and see them enter the room here. So all the ranged go up on the platform in the back. Z-Talks tanks the boss over on this side of the room to start. and you can see all the melee. You can see all the totem positioning, everything like that. Disease cleansing's down. Okay, first explosion goes out. They move. Range just stay there the entire time. So you can see the distance here, but it should be more than enough to let you decurse the tanks and everything like that, right? So he just keeps moving the boss to the next part. And you shouldn't really have to reposition your totems. You can see one of the tanks and some of the other people coming out of the first room, the ad room. They just go back on the boss. Very simple. You can see how fast this boss really dies. I mean, again, this is like mostly a pug with no world buffs. So, I mean, you do get a buff on the PTR that kind of accounts for world buffs, but still, I mean, all things considered, it's not an actual comp that's used to raiding together, right? You can just see how fast he's dying. I mean, he just melts, right? So that's the thing. And you can see Zetox kind of got clipped there, even though he was a little close. And that's really it, guys. Like, it's not that difficult, and the totems most of the way just stay in range the whole time, right? So, and then again, 90 seconds in, he's gonna do the safety dance, and we see him teleport right up there. Everyone goes over to this side of the room. You can see the people that die, including Zetox. You can see them all move as a unit right there. Right, and I think they wiped on purpose so that they could learn the mechanics and everything, right? But you can just see how everyone moves as a unit, you know, just 1, 2, 3, 4, and then back again. Not that difficult, right? And you just do that until the phase is over. In Wrath the Lich King, you still had to tank him, I think, in this phase. In Vanilla WoW, he just stands there. So everybody, including the tanks, just moves as a unit, just like this. It's not that hard. You literally basically don't stop moving. Unless you're on either side in the corner, right? So that's the basic gist of the mechanic. It's very easy. So that is Heigan the Unclean. Not too difficult a boss. Not too easy of a boss. Somewhere in the middle, like there's definitely going to be groups that struggle with this more than others. But considering how fast he dies, like most raid groups, even I'd say week 1 won't even see the safety dance period. So not too intimidating, but there you go. There's a look at the fight on the PTR. So, and with that, we'll go ahead and look at the final boss of the Plaguewing, which is Lotheb. Alrighty, guys, and the final boss of the Plaguewing is none other than Lotheb. Now, this fight is probably one of the most unique fights I've seen, honestly, really in like WoW history. Like, even through the years, I think this is a really, really cool concept for a fight. And as far as classic goes, it's really, really interesting. And I can see this being a very hard pug fight. This is like a fight that warriors are going to want Diamond Flask and stuff for. Or the Diamond Flask sets and stuff. The meme is not dead on here, because this fight, they'll actually need it. So let's get into the fight. So this is a super fun fight. It's very unorthodox, but that's part of what makes it very fun. So off the bat, I would pre-pop a GSPP. Melee are going to pop GNPPs as well as GSPPs, but we're just going to pop GSPPs as the Shaman healers. The most important thing that you want to know off the bat is that we can only heal once every minute on this fight as healers. You didn't mishear me. Once every minute we can heal. So you have one heal a minute. So it better be a good one. So don't worry about those healing parsing logs on this fight, boys, because it's probably going to be like 2 HPS. All right, so that off the bat makes the fight be really, really interesting in and of itself, right? Just because of the damage going out and everything. Now, 95% of the damage through most of the fight is going to go out on the tank, specifically the main tank, or if you just have tanks swap aggro, whichever. The tanks are going to take the bulk of your thing. So obviously, I mean, chain heal here isn't really going to be the most useful thing, just because, I mean, you can only heal once per minute, right? So you want it to be a massive heal when you can heal, right? So like an NS max rank heal or something like that, right? to save your tank. It doesn't have to be NS, but like max rank healing wave or something, for example. Though that's going to be the kind of heals that you want to put out on this fight, just because the tank is going to be getting murdered. And if he has like a diamond flask set, he pops it at the start of the fight, that's what, a minute, 50 seconds from the time you actually probably set up the boss and everything, that he's going to be passive healing himself, right? So that will definitely help on this fight in terms of our job as healers. Now, the other thing about this fight is he has a butt ton of health. I wasn't able to get a total definitive number, but it's like at least a couple mil. And the reason for that is because on this fight, he spawns little spores around the room. He'll just, you know, spawn little spores across the room, just wherever, you know, just in like these corners. They'll kind of like float around. And basically a group of 5 people will, you usually just call out a group like in your raid. They'll kill it. It gives them a buff that gives them like 50% crit or something like that, and 0 threat on the boss. So as healers, we're also DPSing because we can heal, right? Because don't just stand there and wait for your minute CD to come up. You want to be doing damage to the boss as well. So this is applicable for healers as well. Probably not going to get the buff as a healer just because you're going to do some scuffed damage more than likely. Not as valuable as like a warrior or a fire mage or something getting this buff. But this is where the real fun potential of this fight comes in, because you just get 0 threat on the boss and you get basically just like infinite crit. So that's why this boss has so much health. You can imagine ignite ticks are gonna be pretty juicy on this fight. So as again, from our perspective, if you are, this is a fight that especially down the road, maybe not at first, just because of the entirety of Naxx, you might want like a more deep resto build, like Mana Tide, something like that. But this is a fight that as Naxx progresses, especially with the Wind Fury totem enhancement talent actually working properly in this patch, which is a change that's happening, it would be worthwhile to have a 2-handed spec. Have the totem twisting tech, take the 2-handed specialization, and just basically be an enhancement shaman on this fight. You know, it's the one time where it's possible to actually be enhancement in raid, and you know, this could be your time to shine. And I think that would be a lot of fun. Like, I know I'd have a blast with that. I just need to get a 2-handed weapon. So yeah, don't worry as much about like your traditional gearing setup. Honestly, like if you have an enhancement set and you're spec'd into 2-handers, like just go ham on this fight. Because you can only heal once per minute anyway, and if it's a max rank, you're gonna heal a lot anyway. So why not? So there's a lot of things that you could play around with on this fight that could make it more fun. And maybe you could get the Spore and just go ham with crit Wind Furies, you know? I mean, that would probably be a lot of fun. So other than those, I mean, that's basically it, right? He's just, you kill the Spores, you get the buff. You can only heal once per minute as healers. He'll remove like curses and stuff from himself, but we don't really have to worry about that. Since we don't put up curses. The other main mechanic of this fight is Inevitable Doom, which is cast 2 minutes into the fight, and it's a debuff that will inflict like 2,500 shadow damage that you can't resist. I think it's even with resist, like I think it's literally just a plain number, 2,500 shadow damage after 10 seconds of the debuff being applied. And then it occurs every 30 seconds after the initial one is applied. So yeah, basically it's a soft enrage on this fight, essentially. It won't kill you at first, but after like a minute or two, people are going to start dying because you can't really heal them, and they're just going to die, right? So like warlocks are probably going to have to pump out health stones, things like that. So mechanics wise, this is a pretty simple fight. It's just that gimmick of you can't really heal, which makes it a lot more fun for us, and it's kind of a different change of pace. Like, you know, if somebody dies on this fight, there is a 98% chance, I'd say, that it is not going to be your fault, right? So if somebody dies and someone blames their parses and losing world buffs, you can be like, hey, bro, I couldn't heal, sorry. Um, so that's nice. You know, that's a nice change of pace. So this is actually like a really fun, unique, different fight from a healer perspective. It's definitely the biggest change for us as healers for any fight we've ever had to do. Like for other classes, it's going to be more fun because they can just like get the buff and get 0 threat and zug. But in general, for us, it's way different than it is a fire mage or a fury warrior. It's more fun for them, but it's way different for us, right? So that's really it. That's Lotheb. That's the Plague Wing. Some really fun fights in here. None of them particularly difficult, but very interesting mechanically. And I can definitely see some people struggling on some of these bosses. I think Lotheb will be one of those bosses that raids might struggle with just because it's so different from everything else. But man, once you get it done, man, I feel like it's going to be a blast. Whip out those two-handers, the Hand of Rags, the Dark Edges, all you Resto Shamans with Dark Edges, they definitely exist. You know, get that Might of Menethil Prio for your Loatheb parses, because it's going to be fun. So anyway, guys, that'll do it for the Plague Wing. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one. See ya.